Hello, ho, 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 ho. Welcome to, it is a Christmas themed podcast, right, Kev? I'm not wrong.
No, you're dead right. This is Christmas week.
Yes, that was an impromptu hello. I'm very proud of myself now.
Well, I mean, maybe the first one was impromptu.
The one recorded, yeah, we can't. I don't have the audio. Yeah. I've already deleted the audio of the first one that I did
the second one was impromptu in that it was a recreation.
Well, no, it was impromptu.
An earlier failed attempt.
It was the second one.
It was impromptu.
Yeah. Pretty sure that's what that means.
I'm pretty sure that's fair. Yeah, but you're right. It's Christmas, so we're doing a Christmas themed episode. It's Jingle All the Way, Home Alone, Happy Hanukkah special.
Yeah, we've a whole Christmas episode to get to.
We have a whole Christmas episode, but I guess in terms of, I don't know what we said in the intros to other episodes, but basically everything's cancelled.
Yeah, we announced...
Anything we promised before is cancelled.
Because we recorded an intro for last week's episode, and then it got released the day of, or the day after those new restrictions came in.
I think it was, Thursday night, and then the new restrictions came in Friday.
Okay.
Well, they haven't come in yet, but whatever, they were announced on Friday. But basically...
Yeah, scrap anyone down in Cork, we can't do that gig now, so we're not doing that. And we're not doing the one in Dublin, and we'll basically be doing nothing but these podcasts for all of January.
Yeah, who knows? Hopefully by mid-January we'll have some better ideas to when we can go back and do live shows with full capacity even.
Yeah.
But
in lieu of that, don't say anything about till then. In lieu of that, we're going to do we have more Patreon stuff.
Yeah, the silver lining is that we have more time to do podcasts and do Patreon podcasts because all of our gigs and other activities have been cancelled. We can't go see any friends. There's no sessions, no stand-up gigs, no live shows. Just podcasts.
Yeah, there's no happiness in life. There's nothing left. There's nothing remaining.
Just shy talk.
Yeah.
Well, listen now. Come on, Buster Brown. Turn that frown upside down. I've been watching Christmas cartoons. Here, this is going to cheer you up. This is a good, wholesome Christmas story. Released. This will probably be coming out like Christmas Eve.
Ooh.
This is perfect. This is one you can light the fire. Get the family around. If you don't have a fire, you can go onto that, like, you ever see there's like a Netflix, I don't know what you call it.
Fire.
Yeah, Fire, yeah. There's two of them. I was going to say channel. It's not a channel or a show. It's just like a video of a log fire that goes on for like
it is
6 hours.
Class.
It is like very class. It does something weird to you psychologically. The crackle of the fire, the look in it. You feel warmer.
Yeah, but if you're in any of the houses I've ever been in at Christmas time, tight on the electricity. So there's no, and also there's no fires. It's just cold.
No, you can't.
It's a cold room. So you
can't light a fire.
Grab yourself a pair of sweatpants, 2 jumpers, a nice woolly hat, some inside socks. The ones with the rubber on the bottom, so you don't have to wear shoes. Get 4 pairs of them on you, because you need 2 for your hands. Who has gloves these days?
Yeah.
Sit down,
it's
watch
not
that.
Christmas yet.
Yeah, watch that. You're going to get gloves at Christmas time. Who am I going to do? Waste my load on buying a bunch of hats and socks and scarves in the lead up to Christmas. That's fine Christmas attire present.
This is
stuff.
The final hurdle. This is when, we're all walking around. I've got holes in everything, patches on everything else. Yeah. I'm just holding tight until the weekend, until I'm ready to clothe myself.
Going to get set up well for that cold, cold Irish spring. That freezing spring.
So wrap yourself up in all your not finery, whatever. Put on warm clothes. Stick on the Fire Show on Netflix, and listen to this Christmas tale of joy.
Gather around now, you're in for a story. Old tales of lore, all in search of a glory. The history and mystery of lads, lasses, and all. Discoveries and voyages, the rise and the fall. Now as we go back in time, we trace the steps of Irish lineage to find Joseph from Carlow and Gavin the Dog guide you through the ways of Shine's.
Are you ready for the festiveness?
I am. Bring me all.
Founded in 1809, Northern Bank was the largest bank in Northern Ireland in the year 2004. Sporting 95 branches in Northern Ireland, it had its headquarters on Donegal Square in Belfast. So it's right in the city centre of Belfast. It's the main square around the town hall there. Have you ever been? You've been to Belfast, have you?
I have, yeah. I've never looked around for... It's a bold name for in Belfast, the Donegal Square.
Yeah, it's Donegal with 2 L's as well, which I never understood. But it's where all... Yeah, it's like right around the town hall.
That is how all the other alls are spent. Moneygall.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, maybe there's some... Listen, this isn't a history podcast. This is a Christmas podcast, so I don't know where the name came from. I know.
Also glad you didn't push me any further on that, because if you had said, yeah, and what are the other alls?
Yeah, we both said Moneygall. Is it what
for one and one for all?
What
I think is the
one for all voucher? Well, when I was working there, I remember seeing the first year that the town hall puts on a Christmas market in like the front green area every Christmas. And I remember seeing the first year that they put up, they'd always have massive lights saying Happy Christmas at the front of it. And I remember seeing the first time they put up Nullagonna on the side. But whereas like Happy Christmas was in giant letters on the front of it, Nullagonna was on the side, and it was like off center, and it was just about the height of a ladder. So it seemed like it was put up so that it could be taken down at any second when someone complained that there was foreign language on on my town hall. But in fairness, it's like I saw it. It's been there, I think, every year.
This is the problem with letting the Muslims in.
This is how it starts. But every year it did gradually get bigger and bigger and more centered. So I can see where the fear came from. But you should, I'm glad you honed in on your Belfast accent, because it's going to be useful for the next hour of this story. So, yeah, in 2004, Northern Bank was one of 4 banks that were allowed to use its own notes. So, for some reason, the only answer I could find to this was tradition, which is the only reason anything's done in Northern Ireland. But Northern Ireland and Scotland are allowed to issue their own banknotes. But the notes that they make... In
Southern Ireland, we're not allowed to do that, or else all the banknotes would be IOUs.
Yeah, but we have our own version of euros called euros.
That sounds delicious.
Northern Ireland can make their own money, which is... It's legal currency, but it's not legal tender, which I tried to figure out what the difference was. I think so in the UK, Bank of England notes are the only currency that's legal tender. So they're the only ones that you have to accept. All the rest of them you don't technically have to accept. So even in Northern Ireland, you don't have to accept their money.
Yes, I've noticed this in Scotland before.
Yes.
Or like if you have Scottish pounds, and people are like, oh, don't bring them down south because they might not be taken. And you're like, it's very 50-50. If you find like a young person working in a shop or a pub, they can't tell the difference, and they're like, oh yeah, grant.
No,
and you're like, now it's on you.
Well, it's fair enough, because if it was just the case that there was a Scottish tenor and a Northern Irish tenor and an English tenor, but in Northern Ireland there's 4 banks, and all 4 banks can issue their own tenors. So if you bring that over to some kid in Surrey working in a shop, they're like, I have no idea what this is. In 2019, Ulster Bank issued vertical notes. So the notes were sideways.
Snapchat style.
So you can imagine bringing a Ulster Bank tenor over to some guy in Bristol. It's like the fucking note's upside down, mate. And they're expected to take it as legal currency. I did find it interesting.
But it's not upside down.
It's sideways.
It's 90. It's 90 degrees off.
Yeah, it's the wrong way around anyway. The notes look beautiful, but I did find it interesting that was the same year they closed down 11 of their branches in Northern Ireland, whilst they were like issuing vertical notes. This is what the people want. Sideways currency.
In the lead up to Christmas.
And they're all like, they look class, and they're all, taking different bits of culture from different sides. And they talked about all the groups that they had in, the focus groups, to truly capture the essence of Fermanagh to put out on a fiver. And oh yeah, by the way, we've closed half of the branches west of Omagh. They're just gone now. But they've got their finger on the pulse. They know what people really want. Money that you can't use in England.
This is like itchy and scratchy money, basically.
Basically, yeah. You can use it in Northern Ireland, and that's about it. But
I was going to say, not to compare Northern Ireland to some kind of a theme park that's gone wrong and become very violent and all that.
Yeah, we're a cat and a mouse just trying to one-up each other in feats of violence over the years. But Ulster Bank weren't the first people to come up with the vertical note. That honour belongs to Northern Bank. They issued the first vertical note in 1999 with an image of the space shuttle on it. Do you want to know what was happening in 1999 with regards to space?
Were we sending like a time capsule up there?
We were doing nothing. As far as I could find, there was nothing happening. It was 30 years after the moon landing. The space race was over. This USSR had collapsed. And Northern Ireland was like, let's put a rocket on our money.
But even at that, like, Northern Ireland didn't have a space program.
What's your point?
Just like if you
what are you trying to say? Saying that a proud orange man couldn't have made it to the moon?
I'm saying a proud orange man could have been on a soundstage in New Mexico any day he wanted, right? I just think it's weird that if you're going to put something on a note, it should be so like, hey, use the Titanic.
Yeah, I mean,
just use that.
Why not?
I mean,
they use it for everything else.
But like, do it vertically, and then at the very bottom of the note, you can just have the Titanic.
Yeah, you could do an accurate representation of how deep in the water it is now.
Yeah, a full iceberg, and there's the very top of it's the tip.
Yeah, I just thought it was I saw the picture of the note, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. That must be from like the 70s. I was like, it's the 1999 Millennium Note. I think maybe people in the 90s had more hope in future space endeavors.
Or they didn't have like Twitter and Reddit. So, because nowadays we're keenly aware of any mistakes that we make. We'll look like an idiot online.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, they just didn't have that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the logic was behind the decision, but that's just a little groundwork, a little scene setting for our story, which begins on Sunday, the 19th of December, 2004, at around 10 p.m. It's a festive evening, Christmas twinkle in the night sky, when three masked men forced their way into a house in Poleglass on the outskirts of Belfast.
Yes.
Their aim...
I shouldn't have got so... I went very hard in on that, not knowing anything about what's going to happen. But I'm just like, hey, it's a Christmas story. We've got men wearing balaclavas. I'm on board.
Maybe they're just cold. I know you just spent 10 minutes listening to me talk about like banking regulations. You're like, thank God. Thank God there's masked assailants here.
Well, with the history of Ireland and banks, usually it does end with mass assailants and people being kidnapped.
Yeah. You know. Well, the aim was to get 22-year-old Chris Ward, a bank official in the Northern Bank branch in Donegal Square West. He worked in the cash centre in the basement of the bank. So Chris was taken out of the house by one of the men, while the other two kept his family hostage. So in the house at the time were his parents, his brother, and his brother's girlfriend. So two of the men stayed with them, while the other one took him off to another location. If the hostages weren't enough incentive to cooperate, they also made Chris swear on a holy picture that he had in the house that he'd do their bidding.
George Best.
Yeah, it didn't say what the holy picture was, so I can only assume it was a photo of George Best, yes. I think that's a much cleaner incentive than, like, keeping your family hostage.
It was but for men who... These are armed criminals, you said they're armed, right?
Yeah.
Why would they think that maybe they're like the Italian gangsters that are like, we love, three things. It's family, God, and money, or whatever the thing is. But
yeah,
they're committing a really, like, a very, very serious crime. And they're like, right, no, don't worry. He's going to have to do it. He just swore on Jesus.
Yeah.
Or George.
Some things are sacred to a man.
2004 is a great time.
Yeah. Meanwhile, at another house in Downpatrick, two men pretending to be the PSNI with news of a car crash entered and took over the home of another bank official, Kevin McMullen. The intruders held a gun to their heads, and one of them instructed Kevin to forget all he learned in his security briefings and that he didn't owe anything to Northern Bank, that they were only a shower of orange bastards.
And here, swear on this copy of... Who's their next biggest god?
Van Morrison.
We got Jinx. Jinx Lennon. That's who it was.
Swear on this original print of Astral Weeks. But, that's another tactic as well, to be like, they're only a bunch of orange bastards. You don't owe them anything. Like, hey, yeah, you're right. Give me the keys. I'll drive. Where are we going? Let's take them down. So the masked man drives Chris to Kevin McMullen's house. Kevin was Chris's supervisor in the bank. So Kevin's wife, Karen, was then blindfolded and taken away to another location, while Kevin and Chris were kept tied up together in the kitchen. At some point after Chris calmed down, he asked the kidnappers for a beer from the fridge.
Oh. Now, my mind's racing.
That's a reasonable request.
Is he a fan of Smithwick's? Does he like Guinness? Is he a harp kind of a man? McArdle's? What kind of a can is it?
Definitely a can of harp. Up them regions?
I'm thinking bottle, to be honest.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Because it's Christmas time. It's time to get fancy.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Maybe, yeah, Tennent's. I don't know
if they do bottles of Tennent's. I think they do cardboard boxes and they hand out to people on the gut.
Yeah. They just do little wrapped plastic bags.
Even that when they used to do their music festival, like maybe it's still a thing, I don't know, but like tea festival. How bad does a beer have to be that you can sponsor a music festival and will change the name of the sponsor? It's like, it's going to call it Tea Festival. It's like, no, it's Tennent's Festival. It's, to be honest now, it's going to work a whole lot smoother.
Now, we'll take your money, but that's about as far as we'll go in this arrangement. So at 6:30 the next morning, Monday the 20th of December, the masked man left McMullen's house after giving Chris and Kevin instructions on what to do. They were about to head into work that Monday as normal, or their families would be killed. A classic tiger kidnapping.
Okay, so now, is that what that's called? I never heard that term before.
Yeah, that's a fairly, I think it's a very Irish term. I had to look up what the origins were. Apparently it comes from a tiger stalks its prey before it jumps. Unlike, I think most animals do that. But yeah, there's a tiger kidnapping, taking someone's family hostage and making them go and do a crime.
I was going to say, because I don't know many tigers. I don't know many tigers in general, but I don't know any of them that do that before they attack their prey. That they're like, hey, you can stop, because I have your wife and kids. Yeah, I'll give them back to you, but I want to eat you first.
But how this is why I'm surprised that tiger kidnappings even work. Like, how would you do that? Imagine going in on a Monday morning. You presumably haven't slept all night because you've just been kidnapped, and you have to go into work.
Up having cans with the boys.
You're up having cans with the boys. You're talking about common differences. Stockholm syndrome starts to sink in a little bit. Before you know it, the night's over sooner than you thought. The sun comes up. You realise you got to go into work.
Especially after they've told you, forget all of your training. And you go, how am I meant to find the way to the vault?
They've radicalised you against the bank. You're raring to go. You're overeager. But, try to keep a straight face and going in and, like, Monday banter. You can't do it at the best of times.
The water cooler moments.
Yeah.
You know? What were you watching over the weekend? Oh, I saw Point Break and the town.
The business end of a shotgun.
I haven't seen that one yet. Liam Neeson's new one. It's,
So at 6 o'clock, so they do a full shift. At 6 o'clock that evening, Chris carries a bag with roughly £1 million out of the bank and hands it off to another man. Supposedly this was a test run for the main robbery that was going to happen later.
Oh.
1 million, that's just beginners.
I'd have taken that and been done.
Oh yeah, as the robber or as Chris? If you're like walking with that bag.
No, just as me, I think. Just as you. If I could intercept that robbery, I'd be gone.
My family's life is on the line. Sorry, mate.
But they must be raging now that they didn't do the full robbery then, or like even a bigger version of it. Because then they're like, oh, it went off without a hitch. Let's do it again. And you're like, oh, we could have just done it that time. We could have just done it all at that time.
Yeah, I don't really understand what that was for, because the main robbery that they do happens an hour later. So the two...
Also, £1 million quid's enough to go to jail for quite a long time, I imagine. It should have been like, right, it's a test run. It's 50 quid. Sorry, it slipped on my shoe. It's just like when you walk out of the Jacks, out of the bathroom, and you've a bit of toilet paper, and you're like, right, I'm just going to sellotape so like a £50 note to my shoe. And if I get away with that, I'm going to wear 10 million shoes the next time.
It's when you're sending someone a test transaction on Revolut, you don't send them $1,000 just to make sure it's them.
Or you do. That's what I asked for.
Yeah. So the two bank guys stay in the branch after normal hours when it was just them and security, and they started loading crates up with cash. So the security procedures meant everything needed to be done with 2 keys. There's like a 2-check security system. But that just meant that you needed to kidnap 2 families instead of 1. So, as an oversight. It was the week leading up to Christmas, and the bank is, again, it's like right in the middle of the city centre. So the whole place was buzzing. There's people milling around everywhere. Apparently, a couple reported 2 strange men sitting in a white van wearing baseball caps and what looked like ginger wigs.
Are these those hats you'll find at like football and rugby games up around Dublin and Scotland or over? Just like
it sounds like it, yeah.
Notable weapons were inflatable tricolour hammers.
It's not exactly the most inconspicuous disguise, but apparently, the officer went to check it out, but didn't see anything. At 7 o'clock, the very same white van came to collect the crates from the back of the branch, and then came back for a second run at 8 o'clock, bringing the total taken from the bank that day to over £26.5 million. At the time, it was the largest bank robbery in British or Irish history, and is still the 7th largest bank robbery in the history of robbing banks.
Jesus.
In the world.
Was it bigger than, I'm trying to put it together in my head, there's a UFC fighter, former, who robbed a bank years ago in Liverpool. Because he was like, I'm not making enough money throwing leather inside the cage. Why don't I go and rob like 30 million or something odd like that from the bank?
Well, maybe, because most of I just read 2 different lists of the 10 biggest bank robberies in the world. And most of them did seem to happen in the UK. But the only one I remembered was that the number 1 biggest bank robbery was orchestrated by a Mr. Saddam Hussein in 2003 when he sent 3 trucks over to the Iraqi Central Bank and asked them to put $1 billion into it to keep it safe. To keep it safe from the invaders. Apparently he sent his son over with a note saying like, yeah, my dad asked you to put $1 billion into these trucks, and then they just drove off with it.
Like, that's how I used to go to the shop for my ma when I was younger. Just like, here's a piece of paper. My mother, you know her, she says she wants all of these things. She doesn't trust me. You do it.
I don't know if I can sell you cigarettes, kids. Well, listen, you don't want to disappoint my mother now, do you? Here's a 10-pack of Carols on me. But, number 7, that's not bad.
That's good going.
Yeah, at 11 o'clock at night, the night of the 20th.
So this is 24 hours then from the initial, in and around 24 hours from the first kidnapping.
Yes.
It's the night after.
Pretty much, yeah. It's the day of the robbery, that night. Karen McMullen, so like Kevin McMullen's wife, was dumped at Drumcarra Forest in County Down. She made her way through the snow there to a nearby house, and by 11:45, the police and the bank were made aware of the robbery. An investigation was immediately set up with 50 hot detectives.
Oh, nice. Now, I was going to say, when you said 45 minutes later, basically, from the time she got dropped to being at the house to letting everyone know, I thought you were going to say 45 minutes, the guards were with her. It's like, no. They were like, right, what's the information? We'll send someone there in about 6 to 8 hours.
We'll get you when we get you. It's late at night.
We can't be dealing with you. We're about bank robbery to solve. Yes, I just told you. I'm one of the witnesses.
So the hunt was on. So it turned out that about half of the stolen money was made up of new, uncirculated, unused Northern banknotes. So roughly about 10 million of the 26.5 million. Another 5.5 million was like regular used Northern banknotes, and 4.5 million in used notes from other banks, and then about $1 million in other currencies, including euros and US dollars. Which I feel like the euros and US dollars, that's a bit cheeky. Of the 2 lads when they're stealing all the money to sneak in like $1 million in dollars, what the hell are the boys going to do with that?
Holiday, man. Have you ever been to Disneyland?
Yeah, but you just stolen 26 million. You're not thinking about heading off to Disneyland. You want to spend that local.
That is exactly.
Put it back into the economy.
No.
You got to spend local, man.
I was going home the other day in Carlow, and there was a big giant like roadwork sign. You know, like with the like orange metal, big black board with like the orange lights that pop up. And I was like, what is it now? It's construction. We're going to be held up. There's going to be a big... And it's just this shop local, eat local, support local. They just kept flashing those 3 things one after another. And then it said, paid for by Carlow County Council. But just not a billboard, not anything else. It's just, let's leave the roadwork sign out there if we're not using it for actual roadworks. But everyone was slowing down because of it. It's great strategy. Because no one's going to stop to look at a billboard or anything like that, but they will stop if you show like giant flashing orange lights
emergency
on a main road.
Lights, yeah.
You're like, let's figure out what this is. I should go down to John's and buy a loaf. I should. That's better than going to. Although aren't all Super Values local, or because they're
not. Yeah, it's sort of a franchise, but if you go out
the
more,
name of the original shop, it's like Ireland's Wetherspoons.
If you go out more into the countryside, you see it. Yeah, it's more common to be like Brennan's Super Value, but Super Values in small print.
Yeah. Connolly's.
They keep the local family. Yeah, but so in response to the robbery, Northern Bank on the 7th of January 2005. So, well, whatever, like 2 or 3 weeks later, they announced that all of their £10, £20, £50 and £100 notes were going to be recalled and reissued with new designs, new colours and a new logo.
See, now it's not a bad idea to take that $1 million in dollars and euros.
Yeah, exactly. It's looking like a good idea. But so they began the reissue on the 14th of March 2005. So you could go into the branch.
What was the breakdown there earlier on again of the? So it's $1 million in dollars and euros. What's the rest of it?
I'm gonna do it now again. Yeah, but so you could go into the branch and exchange your old notes for the new Northern Bank notes. But presumably, if you walked in with like 10 grand in cash, they'd take you aside for some questioning.
Or 25 million.
So it meant that the uncirculated cash, which was about 10 million of the 26.5 million, was effectively useless. Because it was all like, it was basically new stuff that hadn't been put out before. So it would be very obvious if someone brought it back in. Very obvious if someone brought any of it back in, let alone 10 million of it.
But so it was, you said it's uncirculated so far, it hasn't been released.
It was new money.
Yeah, so then surely the criminals would have known that if they're trying to call this back and no one's... Also, when they robbed it, they must have been like, what's all of this vertical shit?
Yeah, maybe, but they had so much of it, they were happy.
They'd have killed the families of going, you've tried to have us, you've tried to pull one over and just, nope, bang, bang.
Well,
bang.
Luckily, the guy who was checking it was cross-eyed. So it's grand.
If you squint and tilt your head to a 90-degree angle, it actually does look like.
Then
you're still 16 million up.
There you go. You're at last half empty sort of fella. But how do you reckon? Well, we'll get into that in a bit, I suppose. But yeah, basically, this is my favorite part. This is what made me want to do the story, because I heard this years ago. But it's basically like an Aesop fable. Like, they stole so much money that it was easier for the bank just to be like, all those notes are cancelled. The few of you that have legitimate money, come in and we'll give it back to you. It's just easier for us to get rid of all the money and start again, rather than try and get that back.
Oh, like when you go for an STD test, and then they ask you, like, have you taken this and this and this? And then you just go, how about, well, I just tell you what I haven't. And then you just tick those off, and we end this conversation now. And we don't sit there for 5 minutes.
That's sort of nothing what it's like, but yes. It's a good insight. So, this is the question that was racking the people of Northern Ireland. Pretty much the whole world at the time. It was a slow news month. Who did it? So very little information. Who do you think did it?
I'm going to just guess.
Yep.
It's the Ra. It's the Ra. It's definitely the Ra.
Well, you share that opinion with pretty much everyone else at the time. The PSNI, as well as like multiple political figures in Ireland and the UK, all accused the Provisional IRA of being responsible. The Chief Constable, Hugh Ord, made a public statement to say that, having assessed the available evidence, he believed the Provisional IRA was to blame. The Independent Monitoring Commission, which is a body appointed during the Good Friday Agreement to like oversee the ceasefires in Northern Ireland, they all agreed it was the IRA and recommended that Sinn Féin be fined for authorising the heists. Years later, during WikiLeaks, when confidential US cables were leaked, it came out that Bertie Ahern had also suspected Gerry Adams and Martin McGuinness of having advanced knowledge of the robbery.
Oh, this is... What a country. What a country. What a history we have.
So, a lot of people being negative on the poor IRA, yourself included. But not everyone was.
I wasn't negative. I just put 2 and 2 together and got the Ra.
Not everyone thought the same way, you know. The IRA released a statement on the 18th of January, which denied any involvement in the robbery. They said, "The IRA has been accused of involvement in the recent Northern Bank robbery. We were not involved."
Huh.
Pretty compelling.
It is, but also, I mean, don't usually I don't want to throw around words here that might get me in trouble, but terrorist organizations often,
Whoa.
organizations. Stop with the big words. I don't know if it's not saying it's the truth in Ireland or not, but like around the world, you'll often find terrorist organizations claiming that they've done something, like taking the credit for something that they haven't done, just because they're like, well, it'll make us seem more powerful. So if the lads are coming out not putting their hands up, if they're sending a letter to someone anonymously saying, we didn't do it, I'm going to take them at their word.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 2-line statement. That's all you need. Brevity is the key to innocence, I think.
Yeah, if you don't have anything positive to say, don't say anything at all.
Well, the IRA's number one rule is say nothing. So it really took them a lot to get together 20 words. But despite the strong denial from the provisional IRA, it was widely believed in Northern Ireland and elsewhere, especially in unionist circles, that they were responsible. A common theory was that the robbery was a pension scheme for the IRA before they were fully dissolved.
Other groups put stuff in the Cayman Islands, or they'll find a workaround somehow. They don't go, right lads, it's time to break the band apart. One last farewell tour. Gonna sell out the big stadiums. Gonna get everyone. Gonna get parents bringing their kids to see this generation. Their last big hurrah. You don't need. They should have that sorted, and everyone should have bricks of gold. However.
They were busy spending money on stuff that came up. They're not exactly known for their financial savvy. They weren't putting away a pound, saving a penny here and there over the years.
Well,
they need to get their nest egg at the end before they're out. This is their one last job.
This is their golden handshake. Okay.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But well, that was a leading theory. Another theory was that they'd robbed the money to support Sinn Féin's election campaign, which I don't think makes any sense. That just definitely seems like more propaganda at the time.
Yeah. Now, also, I have realised, if maybe I'm jumping ahead of jumping the gun here, but
don't mention guns in the same sentence as Sinn Féin.
Sorry. If the IRA just held on to the money, that 10 million that's worthless, for long enough, I guarantee you it would be worth a lot more than 10 million.
Oh yeah, as a collector's item.
Yeah, you would happily spend 20 quid on a £5 note or a £10 note that was non-usable.
From the great, Now
that's just, they didn't have marketing savvy like me at the time.
I would almost guarantee that there's somebody in Belfast right now selling Northern Bank robbery notes as Christmas presents in little display cases.
But sure, they don't even have to be real ones. They could be fake. When we give the Americans the chips from the Rocket Cash, just why not? But this piece is purple. It used to be. Well, shut up.
But I guess if you have so much fake money, you're only making more work for yourself if you start creating more,
Oh, my theory goes that you'd sell out so quickly of the actual fake money, the real fake money. You gotta make fake money.
You want to hang on to the real fake money.
Gotta hold on to that, because one day they might bring it back. But sell the fake money to expat Americans.
Yes. So the idea of the Sinn Féin electoral campaign doesn't really make any sense. All this robbery is happening against the backdrop of talks to revive Stormont, which is the government building in Belfast.
Yeah.
The Good Friday Agreement has been signed.
It's meant to be lovely. I haven't been. My parents went the other year.
Yeah.
They were walking around. I think it was a Sunday, whatever day it was closed. They don't have it, and they were walking around. It was it's empty here around the court, the courtyards or whatever. And a security guard came up to him, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" Like, "Well, we came to see the things." "Well, it's closed." They didn't sound like that.
No.
But the security guard was like, "Oh yeah, no one tell you it's Ashford. You know what? Come on, I'll show you." And then just private walk, little tour around Stormont. They were like, "It's lovely buildings."
It is lovely buildings. It's closed not only on Sunday, but also pretty much every second year. It was closed from I think it broke some sort of record. Remember, it was closed from 2017 to 2020. It broke a record for being the longest dissolved parliament, possibly in the world. I don't know. They're putting in good stints anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The Good Friday Agreement signed in 1998. That was 6 years before the robbery. But the first parish sharing government. So the idea was to bring in a parish sharing government. Catholics and Protestants, Unionists and Republicans, working side by side to move Northern Ireland forward. And that lasted until 2002, when the police raided Sinn Féin's office in Stormont, investigating a claim that the political party was gathering intelligence for the IRA, which made the Unionists feel a bit uneasy, so they dissolved the parish sharing agreement. So in late 2004, they were still trying to get the parish sharing thing back on track. But one of the main bones of contention in the talk was the continued activity of the IRA, despite the fact that the IRA had supposedly been on ceasefire for like a decade at that point.
Yeah, well, because if they were disbanded, that's a good trick, because then they shouldn't have any dealings at all. Never mind just put down the guns. They shouldn't be doing anything. But what are you going to do? You can't get lads not seeing their friends. They've been in this thing for years together. Let them have a little rec centre, go down, like a little workman's club. But I was going to say that if you did, that's a great way to get them, by robbing your own bank and then getting them to come out and say it wasn't us. You said, well, you weren't even meant to exist. Well, you said you disbanded.
Well, actually, what you described there is apparently, I'd heard that in one of the documentaries I was listening to for this. Apparently, that was the idea in the Good Friday Agreement, because they're supposed to disarm, and they were like, it'll just become like a social club, because they were like, yeah, what are you going to stop them being friends? These are neighbours, brothers. They're just going down the pub to watch the match, you know. But the idea was that they're supposed to get rid of all their guns.
So what match is it? So Celtic Rangers. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
That's not... it's like a rally.
But so they weren't doing like any... You know, they weren't doing any of their roles. They weren't planting any bombs or anything. But there was an awful lot of like smuggling, punishment shootings, the odd assassination, and a bank robbery here and there that was almost certainly the work of an organised paramilitary outfit. But... they weren't doing anything officially as the RA.
But this was like could it have been the real IRA?
Yeah, maybe. I think this is a big arguing point anyway, was that the Unionists wanted Sinn Féin... I don't know, they basically wanted the IRA to stop committing all these crimes, but...
they wanted them to stop doing the things that they'd signed off and stop doing.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, now, technically, they'd only signed off on stopping warfare in the upland countryside. They never said that they wouldn't become a criminal gang.
They did say ceasefire, though. That means, like, don't you... I suppose it means put down your... Yeah, you're right. I mean, you said just don't shoot for that reason.
Yes, they got them on a technicality. But, on the 8th of December, 2 weeks before the robbery, Sinn Féin had gotten in trouble during a peace process meeting with Bertie Ahern, Tony Blair, Gerry Adams and Martin McGuinness, where they'd refused to promise that the IRA wouldn't stop its criminal activity, which... It's a fairly low bar, I guess.
Wait, did you say that they refused to say that they wouldn't?
Yeah.
Were you getting into...
The Unionists were like, you need to promise that the IRA will stop robbing banks. And they were like,
gotcha.
We can't do that.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, somebody pulls off the biggest bank robbery in the history of the state.
And then they go, do you know that deal you had on the table 2 weeks ago? We've talked it over with the IRAs. And they were like, that seems like a good deal.
Well, they're all...
Now that you've robbed a bank.
They just show up like the Chris the Sheep episode. Gerry Adams shows up in a big fur coat. Bart McGuinness in a crown. It's like, well, we're ready to negotiate now. So obviously this is a bone of contention with trying to get Stormont back up and running. So it's not ideal that the robbery happens at the time, and everyone and their mother and the dog in the street suspects that it's the IRA and Sinn Féin.
Think about it from Sinn Féin's point of view. They're looking at this, trying to get Parliament, Stormont back up and running, trying to get it all going, and all of a sudden you've got these unionists who are blaming nonsense on them. They haven't done a thing.
Yeah.
They're a political party.
You've got, well, in a similar vein, this was an unfortunate event that the robbery happened, but you know, when it rains it pours, and around the same time, at the end of January, they also got in trouble for the murder of 33-year-old Robert McCartney. He got into a fight in McGuinness's bar after his friend allegedly made some remark to a woman, and the two of them were dragged out into the street, beaten with pipes and stabbed several times.
Now, when you said you say McGuinness's,
it's like Magennis.
Oh, so it's not Martin's.
McGuinness's.
It's not Martin's spot.
No. It sounds like McGuinness's, but in a Margennis's. Like
that pub in Dublin called Me Ma's. It's spelled MEMA. S, and everyone's like, yeah, it's Memas, and they're all like,
Memas.
Everyone's trying to give it like a Portuguese sounding name.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw it, I was like, is this place called Mimaz? And I was with one of my friends from Dundalk. She's like, don't be stupid. It's look at all the neon lights and it's a beautiful inside. It's not called Mimaz. I said it to the waiter. She's like, yeah, you're like the first person to have got it.
But back to the story of this murdered man. So when the police came down to investigate the scene, there were riots in the streets, which Sinn Féin came out and said were in response to heavy-handed action by the police in the area. But everyone else said was a distraction so that they could destroy evidence and threaten witnesses. So they're a bit like when the police went down to like inspect the scene of the crime, there was just kids throwing stones at them and like causing riots. And then when eventually they got down there, they kind of got the sense that everyone had been, maybe spoken to beforehand. So I don't know if you ever heard, like, I didn't realize this was the case, but it's a fairly famous case where like they interviewed 71 potential witnesses who were at the bar that night, and they all said that they were in the bathroom at the time of the attack.
Hell of a drug. Cocaine, Christmas time. It's not on any given Stevens' night. You might go down and find 4 lads to a cubicle, no one at the urinals, and it's a line out the door.
Yeah, so it's conceivable that everyone in the bar was just in the toilets at the time.
Yeah, how big are the toilets? That's what they don't tell you.
Well, they did actually. I didn't write down the dimensions, but because it was such a ridiculous case, like the dimensions of the toilets made it into the newspaper, and it's the size of a regular toilet in a bar. But it was like, I don't know, magic.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're definitely yes. I think give the lads some credit. They've just robbed a bank. They've spent a bunch of money on cocaine. It's Christmas time. Everyone's having a great.
These are unrelated lads, but for presumably unrelated reasons, 12 members of Sinn Féin were suspended a few weeks afterwards, and 3 members of the IRA were apparently kicked out. On the 8th of March 2005, the IRA issued an unprecedented statement saying that 4 people were directly involved in the murder, that the IRA knew who they were, 2 of them were IRA volunteers, and the RA had made an offer to McCartney's family to shoot the people directly involved in the murder. It's horror decent of them.
Whoa, wait, what? So they're actually... Now, it's 3 months later. They're
No,
admitting,
so this is probably a month and a half later.
Oh, from the January thing.
Later.
You're saying this
is the murder ended at the murder happened at the end of January on the 31st.
Yeah.
And they got so much backlash from it that they were like, all right, this is what we'll do. We know who it is, and just this one time, we will murder them for you.
That is... I mean, fair play.
They'd never done it before.
Why do I believe them?
Oh, yeah, they would have done it.
Yeah.
Well, because it was very obviously... It was them.
No, but it's definitely just that 2 lads have already died, and they're like, right, hold on now, put them on ice. I think we have a way out of this.
Conveniently, we've actually got 2. Here's 2 I prepared earlier. Yeah, I didn't really go in, because this story is kind of long enough, but I didn't really go into the... apparently this was like a big deal. Because he was a young man,
yeah.
And like it's the waning days of the IRA and the usual like threatening intimidation. Sinn Féin lost a seat in the area for the first time in ages, I think. Like the whole thing was...
What did he say? What do you have to say for that to happen?
Yeah, probably not that much, I'd say.
Yeah. I don't know, though.
And apparently it was his friend that said something or done something, and he was just stepping in. So his friend survived, but had like his throat slashed and was also beaten up with pipes.
But the guy who was stepping in to try and help actually died, and your man who said the thing, he lived.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not great now.
Yeah,
that's not great.
No, not exactly.
The worst case scenario of, do you have my back? Do you have my back? There's a lad over here talking shit. It's like, no, I got your back, man. And you turn around and it's a bar full of IRA members. And you're like, well...
And you turn back around and everyone else is in the bathroom all of a sudden. God damn, I was next.
Is there space for 2 more lads? There's already 71 people in here. That's our limit.
So, back to the main story. On the 10th of February, the Independent Monitoring Commission released a report saying that the IRA had robbed the Northern Bank with the sanction of senior Sinn Féin members.
Right. Now, I'm not saying that they're wrong, but how could they have known?
How could the Independent Monitoring Commission have known? Yeah.
It's just the best educated guess you can have, unless like a member of the IRA comes out and says, "Oh no, we did it." That like Where's the proof?
Yeah. I don't know, to be honest. Yeah, because all this stuff comes out in the first couple of weeks, and everyone just says it's the IRA. And a lot of it is like, it was such a sophisticated, smooth mechanism. It couldn't have been anyone else. It's like they fucking kidnapped 2 families.
Yeah.
And then drove off. Like, they went back. So they took all the money at 7 and then went back at 8 for more money, even though they would have had like 10 million. They went back for more. Also, there's the thing of the initial, like, getting them to walk out with $1 million. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't, like, they got a load of money, but it doesn't seem like, it's not Ocean's 11. They've kidnapped 2 families and just took a load of money away in the van.
Yeah, but also, that's great. Cut out the middleman, or the 10 middlemen. You just need that Ocean 1. Just one lad.
Ocean 1. But everyone was like, it's too clever. It must have been the IRA.
Yeah, you'd be raging if you were. It's kind of like The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Like, they've done so much.
Oh yeah, if someone else actually did it.
Yeah, then you go like, no, it's probably you. It's like, no, for once, it honest to God isn't. It just is not us. You go, yeah, sure.
Listen, we tell you.
Same thing every week.
Yeah. But on that same day, the 10th of February, houses near Berra in County Tyrone belonging to 2 brothers were searched in connection with the robbery, but nothing was found. But the next day, in the Republic of Ireland, on the 16th of February, An Garda Síochána arrested 7 people during a series of raids in Cork and Dublin as part of an investigation into money laundering, which they refer to as Operation Phoenix.
Okay, what's the significance of the... Because usually there's a reason for the
Nothing.
names. Like, usually these names, like...
No.
It's just...
It doesn't make any sense. Like, rising from the ashes.
Because if it was a drug bust, you'd be like, rising from the hashes. I'd be like, clever. Well done, lads.
There you go. Yes. Yeah. Or if someone was beaten to death with hurls and it was rising from the ashes again, but differently.
All right. I thought you were going to say you could call it the Operation Flight of the Hurls.
There you go. But I googled Operation Phoenix, and apparently there's a lot of them. And I think it's just because the Garda headquarters is in Phoenix Park. And they were like, well, what do we call this one? Operation Dublin Zoo. No, Operation Phoenix Park.
And the zoo doesn't even have a phoenix anymore.
No, they lost that in 1904. But yeah, great name for... It doesn't make any sense. It was wasted on this. But during the raids, they recovered over £2 million, including £60,000 in Northern banknotes. So they arrested several men from Derry and a former Sinn Féin candidate for the Dáil, Tom Hanlon. Tom, 37 years old at the time, was a painter-decorator who was arrested in Passage West in Cork. He was a former Sinn Féin town councillor who served in Cork until 2004 and unsuccessful Sinn Féin candidate to the Dáil in 2002. At the time of his arrest, Martin McGuinness told the BBC that he'd never met or heard of Tom Hanlon. Within days, footage surfaced of the two of them laughing and joking at a Sinn Féin meeting.
At a pool party in Las Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to see that nothing's changed in like 15 years. It's the same. I've never heard of that man. Here's video of the two of you hanging out of each other 4 weeks ago. Oh, Tom Hanlon.
See, I'm bad with names. I'm better with faces.
Yeah.
But in fairness, I've done that a lot though.
Yeah, no, that is...
You have as well. That, like, you're just like, oh no, I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. Here's a photo of them. Oh, yeah. I always see it. I thought you had a different name, or I just never learned it.
Or definitely, like, especially if it happened like 10 years ago, you could show me video footage of any sort of party I was at. Or like, yeah, here you are laughing and running around with this guy. It's like, I've literally no recollection of that. I have no idea who that is. Jason Brennan? I've never heard of that man.
90 hours of a podcast with him. Yeah, that's audio. I don't know his face. We don't have the internet connection for video
it's audio
chats.
media.
We've got to do this thing just off of a phone call.
So there were 3 other men arrested at Houston Station in Dublin, including one Don Bullman, a chef from Cork, who was caught carrying £63,000 in a box of Daz washing powder.
Christmas tips.
Yeah. I think the idea was that he was laundering money with laundry detergent.
That's a good... I like that, though.
That's pretty clever. That's the sort of thing... As soon as he was caught, he was like, this is going to be all over the papers. And it was. But I wouldn't be able to stop myself either.
Oh, you'd have to do it. It's just too...
I'd be walking around with a laundry hamper full of money, being like, Guess where this is going?
It is beautiful in that sense.
It is, yeah. I'm glad for Mr. Bullman.
What's your name? Barry Scott.
Bang! And the money's laundered. On the 17th, Operation Phoenix continued when Gardaí raided the home of Cork financier and moneylender Timothy Ted Cunningham. So they found 2.3 million in mixed sterling notes. Supposedly this was hidden in a compost heap at the back of his house.
Okay.
Which I can see hiding drugs in a compost heap. But why money? Like, it doesn't smell.
Just to hide it, so that they don't, when they come around, they check everything, they mightn't go, because that's, you could be like, right, you're going to turn over the bed, you better put that back the way it came, and all of that, but then some lad goes over to the compost heap, and he's like, if ye upset the flora and fauna of my back garden.
Yeah, I suppose who's going to go check the shit heap outside? But it
would be the first place I would go if you thought someone was like money laundering. I would just be like diving into it, and then an hour later someone's like, it was under the couch, and you're like, don't ruin my fun.
There's a big safe upstairs that was open. It was in there.
Oh, yeah.
And we found it in the washing basket.
I got that. I opened that safe.
So after Ted and his partner were brought in for questioning, a Mr. Phil Flynn, the then chairman of the Royal Bank of Scotland and Ireland, a financial advisor to the government, and former vice president of Sinn Féin, had to come forward to say that, yes, he was a co-director of Chesterton Finance with Ted Cunningham, but that the business was clean because he checked it out.
Oh, fine. See? And the IRA have already said they didn't do it.
Well, this is just, Ted Cunningham, he's a businessman around Cork. He's got his hand in many pies. It's not suspicious that me, a leading bank manager and financial advisor and former Sinn Féin aide, is connected with him in one of his businesses where they found all the stolen money. It's a small country.
It is. That's the thing. Like, you're saying it as a joke, but also I could genuinely see, like, well, yeah.
I know, yeah. It is a small country, and when you get to a certain level of wealth, you're like, yeah, I do business with everybody. Of course, half of them are going to be related to paramilitary organizations.
Yeah. Oh, but even like
I do business with Hamas, like.
But you've one dinner party, and then you've met everyone who's done something illegal, and they've photos and videos of you there. Like, how many times have you been at a party and someone's like, or maybe you've seen someone before, or you haven't, and you're chatting for 5 minutes, and then it's too late to ask them their name.
Yeah.
Like, think about that, and all of a sudden, then it's a criminal. That man...
Yeah, they were all criminals, actually.
And it's a good sting operation, PSNI get all the criminals together so we can take photos of them.
Yeah. Yeah, just invite all the criminals to the same cocktail party and take all their photos together for later evidence. There was another man, George Haggerty, a fitter and part-time bouncer from Douglas. He was also arrested. He was described by his friends as a model neighbour, always on hand to clear guttering or put the bin out. He prided himself on keeping his lawn at home immaculately trimmed, locals said. Gardaí found 66,000 stolen pounds of Northern Bank money in the bedroom.
I thought you were going to say in his garden. I was like, that's why he's at it so much.
On the 18th, they arrested another man in Passage West with a load of assault rifle rounds after a tip-off from his neighbours that he was burning sterling notes in his backyard. Now that's panic.
Just go somewhere and dump them.
No, the heat's on. The fuzz is closing in, man. I don't know how much money he had, but he's like, just burn it.
That is like a giant, it must be like a wheelie bin full of money.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be a barrel full of, like a fire. You're just like, what were you getting rid of? Oh, just like journal entries and notes from a previous time. I just don't want to think about them too much. Also, £66,000 of notes. But also, I just came back from a trip and I thought it's a new start for me, new fresh outlook on life. Burn those £66,000. I want to reinvigorate myself for bygone times. Let them be forgotten and burn those £66,000.
That is the key part. I will stress that again. So the same day, another man handed in £175,000 to the Guardian Cork, saying that Ted Cunningham had given it to him to look after.
He's dead. That man is dead.
Now listen. In late February, a woman called Catherine Nelson was arrested when she returned from Bulgaria. She was originally a teacher from Athy, but she became a diplomatic liaison officer and was working in Sofia, helping Irish people invest money in Bulgaria in 2005, which was a very lucrative business at the time, I'd imagine.
Yes, apartments and houses, for sure.
Yeah, but this is exactly what we were talking about. As part of her job, she'd briefly met with Ted Cunningham, and apparently that was enough to get her arrested. But she probably met with everybody.
Oh, what you said about her. But she may have only briefly met him, but if briefly meeting him was a handoff of like, here's like £10 million.
But he was definitely trying to figure out a way of how to like, well, I've got one man here who's offering to burn all the money. If you can do better over there in Bulgaria, I'd like to hear it because I will walk. He's willing to burn 66,000 right now if I ask him.
But it's unusable money. So like,
no, well,
so this is the money that is
half of it's
yeah. So they've £15 million and then $1 million in dollars and euros. That's where we're at now.
Yeah, roughly like that. Yeah.
Okay, it's good. It's good money still.
Yeah, plenty to go around. What are you saying? You don't want a second apartment in Sofia, Bulgaria? Yeah. Everyone's doing it. You'd be a fool not to.
Realistically, how many pensions does the IRA have? Because A, a lot of lads die. B, anyone who's ever been accused of being a member of them says they're not. So straight away, they're not getting any.
Yeah, it's like a catch-22 loophole. You have to openly declare you're a member of the IRA to collect the pension. And you're right. I mean, how many of them live to 65? But so after Operation Phoenix, the guards didn't officially confirm that the raids were related to the Northern Bank robbery, but they did say it was definitely an IRA laundering effort. So we're not saying the rat did it. We're just saying that we found a lot of the money from the robbery in the hands of RA people in the process of being laundered.
Yeah. But again, not saying they've done it. That's just, you know, if you want to go to if you want to get some bread, you go to a baker. If you want a good cut of meat, you go to a butcher. If you want to launder £16 million,
so people have systems in place. So on the 19th of February, the PSNI said they found £50,000 of the uncirculated Northern banknotes in the toilets at the New Forge County Club, a social club in Belfast for serving and retired police officers. So I don't know at what stage they actually found. So I think it took them a while to announce that they'd found it, but they were like, well, this is obviously just a distraction tactic, but then they had to open an investigation into it. But someone had just snuck into the bathroom of like the police retirement club and just left 50 grand of the unusable stuff. I love that.
That's
great.
That is it's a great idea. That's a genius idea.
I really hope they called in a tip to be like, I think you should check the bathrooms.
Or if they stop them on the way and go, wait, no, you got to buy something to use our bathroom. He's like, okay, here's what note is this? Never you mind. You just take this now. I'll have one pint.
So in March then of 2005, the ongoing scandal of Sinn Féin's possible involvement with the robbery, along with the Robert McCartney death, caused the US to block fundraising for Sinn Féin altogether.
Whoa, that's huge.
Yeah, so the ban lasted until November of the same year, but that's a big move.
Was it an election year?
Oh, in America?
No, in Ireland at all. So they couldn't raise funds. Just saying.
Oh, right, for election.
Yeah,
I think when they're raising funds for Sinn Féin, I don't know if people thought the money was going to Sinn Féin.
I don't know what you're talking about.
What's the no raid? There'll be buckets going around in trad sessions over in Boston for the boys back home.
Yeah, for Sinn Féin.
Yeah. Anyway, they put a stop to that for a couple of months. And I just realised now, they put a ban in March. St. Patrick's Day. That's prime money collecting time.
Some might say that would be like shutting the pubs down over Christmas.
You're right. That's yeah. So the ban lasted until November. That same November, the PSNI arrested 5 men, 2 in Kilcoo, County Down, 1 in Belfast, 1 in Dungannon, 1 in Coal Island. In protest, crowds blocked the roads between Castlewellan and Uri near Kilcoo, with burnt out vehicles.
Now, when you say burnt out vehicles, did they hardly pull burnt out vehicles down there?
I had imagined they drove them down and then burnt them out on site.
Yeah,
that's probably what I'd do.
Yeah, don't incriminate yourself, but yes.
So these three men were charged with, one of them was charged with robbery, hostage taking, possession of a firearm, intimidation with a firearm.
Don't be tagging bollocks like that in.
I know,
There should just be one charge that you did, did you or did you not do something dodgy?
Yeah.
That,
one of them was...
You had a gun, you weren't meant to have a gun. You had a gun, you intimidated someone, and you're not meant to intimidate someone. You're definitely not meant to intimidate them with guns. This is all just the one charge. I had a gun, and
Were you pointing a gun at someone, and the gun had bullets in it? More than one bullet. Well, now that's multiple offences.
Yeah.
Well, one of the charges was making false statements to police in relation to a white Ford Transit van.
That's it from the robbery initially. So they think that the IRA
lied.
They think that the lads lied about the tip-off so that the police would go and have a look and then leave going, right, there's nothing there.
No, I guess at some point they were like, do you own a white van? And they were like, no. Like, well, what's that behind you? So, yeah. Shit, okay.
That's off cream.
I don't know.
That's honest.
Yeah. I'd never call that white in a million years. Let me get the wife out here. She's great at this sort of thing. I don't know what
the tax book.
Yeah.
Check the tax book. No, in fairness, how he's got us. It's called cocaine beige.
It says he hasn't paid tax since 1997. Well, I did that one to myself. So on the 29th of November, that same month, Chris Ward, one of the two bank officials involved in the robbery, was arrested and the PSNI searched his home. On the 2nd of December, the police went in hard with 25 Land Rovers to raid Casement Park, the GAA stadium in West Belfast, where Ward worked part-time. The GAA reported the matter to the Irish government, complaining that it had not been warned about the raid. Which... I mean, obviously not.
Yeah, but you need to give the lads some time to, burn documents and such.
Like, if they were raiding anywhere, would you tell the organisation you were going to raid it beforehand?
No, but they have the right to complain about it.
No harm to the GAA, but as this case goes on, obviously, it was a stupid move that they did, but no harm to the GAA. Like, if I was going after one of their employees, there's not a hope I would trust that organisation to not tip off half the fucking country before you showed up. It's like a sieve.
It's given me a whole new level of respect for the GAA though.
To complain about that.
Yeah, that's
pretty. Yeah,
it's petty. It's to slow everything down. It's the same as actually on a football field, like a GAA field, or any sport really. Like, someone's committed a foul. You're not complaining to the referee for that foul. It's for the next time someone's going to come in and rage you.
But on the 7th of December, Chris Ward was prosecuted for robbery and using a firearm. Ward denied the charge and claimed that the police were harassing him and his family in an attempt to frame him as the inside man on the job. Ward complained that the police had held him longer than the gang had held his family hostage. I don't know at what stage it had been changed, but there'd been a change to the Terrorism Act that they'd arrested Chris under, which allowed the PSNI to hold people without evidence for up to 14 days. So Chris was the first person in British or Irish legal history to be detained without charges for more than 7 days.
Okay.
So you think of the history of all the fucked up things that have happened in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
And the first time they hold someone for more than 7 days is a 23-year-old guy. I know it's a lot of money, but the amount of people that were murdered, families disappeared, and people were
24 hours is up. Okay, gotta let them walk free.
Yeah. Whereas this guy, they just take him and sweat him for, I don't know how long he was in there, but somewhere between 7 and 14 days.
Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I mean,
but,
he did do it though, right?
Listen, let's continue the story. But it's the numbers that matter, By the end of 2005, police investigations had resulted in a total of 13 arrests and 22 searches. They're making progress.
How much money?
I think the guards had gotten back, what did I say earlier? £2 million? £2 million?
And then a couple of 60 grand busts.
No, I think that was all included in the 2 million.
Okay, so they're not doing that well.
Hey, who are you, the fucking chief inspector? Come on, I'm busting my hump out here. I kept this kid here for 8 days under the Terrorist Act. To be honest, this is one of the weird things in the case that I don't... The guards seem to be doing most of the work. Like, the guards are doing all the busts down south for the laundering aspect of it. The PSNI don't really do a lot, even though it's...
Shots fired.
Yeah, but I think there's something more going on.
I'm saying that's what they're dealing with that when we're doing the laundry stuff.
Yeah, fair enough. The next couple of bits, I'm just going to start jumping forward through years. That's pretty much the story of the 2005 robbery.
Happy Christmas.
But on to the aftermath. A very happy Christmas story so far. In January 2007, all charges against the men from Kilcoe and Coal Island were dropped by the Public Prosecution Service. Later on that year, Don Bullman, the guy with all the money in the laundry box, he received a 4-year jail sentence. The chef, yeah. He received a 4-year jail sentence for membership in the IRA, but the judge clarified that the sentence had nothing to do with the robbery.
Even though they could trace those notes.
Yeah, to be honest, I think he was arrested with laundered money, so it might have already been traced. They got him on laundering charges, but they couldn't prove that it was anything to do with the robbery.
Okay.
In September 2008, the big one was up. Chris Ward's trial for robbery and false imprisonment began. So this is the only guy who's been arrested so far that's like directly linked to the robbery. Everyone else is to do with the laundry or whatever. So this is the big one. And it turned out the prosecution had fuck all. Their whole case was seemingly riding on the last minute change to the rota, which meant that Chris and Kevin were working on the same day. So because it had been changed to the last minute, so you remember, like, everything needs 2 keys, so you'd need, for the robbery to work, you'd need to know what 2 people were going to be there on the day, because you need the same 2 people.
Gotcha.
Or the right 2 people, or whatever. And because there'd been a last-minute rota change, they were like, oh, inside job. He must have done it. But it came out in the court that this had been done by the result of a changed decision by management. So it was nothing to do with Chris at all.
Well, get the management. Can we pull all of them up?
Yeah, well, but apparently that was their entire case. They were like, well, last minute rota change. It must have been him that did it. And also the fact that he was like a Catholic. He's from a certain Catholic neighborhood. He had a job in the GAA club. He also was the president of a local Celtic supporters club.
And that's literally it, though. There's nothing incriminating.
That's literally it. They're like, oh, he's from a certain neighborhood. He is a certain way. And the only evidence was that the rota had changed. And then when they brought that up, they're like, oh, yeah, that was a management decision. There wasn't anything to do with him.
But you did say he's Catholic, though.
Yeah.
That's like, it's a lot here hinges on the jury. Like, if we can get a majority Protestant jury, we've got him dead to rights.
Well, they needed someone. So, well, apparently in the court case, they brought up the fact that he'd asked for a beer during the kidnapping. Like, when he was in the house kidnapped and he'd asked for a drink, they were like, would an innocent man ask for a drink?
Yes.
Again, if the jury's all Catholic, they're like, I'd ask for a drink right now. Yeah. What are you offering?
An innocent, like a guilty man wouldn't have put it into his statement that, oh yeah, sure, I sat down with him, had a beer. Like, you wouldn't have, wouldn't have put that in. You would have just left it.
If I was kidnapped and like tied to a radiator in a kitchen all night, well, it's a stressful situation.
You see it in movies all the time. They're like, cigarettes here, do you want one of these? And you're like, all right, even before like an execution or whatever. This lad's probably thinking, also, he knows he's going to have to go through with this, I imagine. Like, at some point, he's got the handcuffs around him. He's beside the radiator. He's going, right, well, it's either let the family die or else do this thing. So he's probably coming to terms with going, right, so, well, 1, to steady the nerves. And it's second one to steady the nerves, and by the 4th or 5th one, you're not that steady anymore. You're just kind of like, you're willing to do it, but on very shaky legs.
Chris's defense lawyer claimed that Chris hadn't been given the luxury of innocence until proven guilty because he was a Catholic. And he said, this Kafkaesque farce started from the premise that Chris Ward was guilty and worked backwards, rather than commencing with the evidence and working forwards.
What about that's Kafka?
Yeah, is it like Kafkaesque, just sort of getting caught up in bureaucracy?
All right, but it's probably one of these things that's been bastardized over the years because people want to use it.
I think so. Well, the only stuff I've read by him is the one where he turns into a beetle.
Yeah, the metamorphosis.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I think you're
to be honest, what it is it's a catchy thing to shout at a judge.
Yes,
you know, this Kafka-esque shambles.
It's like when you see people screaming, "This fascistic government!" You're like, wait, now hold on. Now,
yeah, is it fascist? Do you ever see The Squid and the Whale?
Yeah. The Noah Baum, the what's his name?
Bama, how? Yeah, I know the guy you're talking.
Yeah, he wrote and directed that. You can always tell when he's done something because much like Guy Ritchie, very different reasons. But the language that the character is talking, that straight away you're like, oh right. It's like Wes Anderson's a better example. Where you're just like, the way they talk and interact with each other wouldn't happen in real life, but you just kind of allow it to go. Did he also do Marriage Story?
I'm not sure, but the bit I was thinking of is. There's a great bit that always stuck with me where, like, Jesse Eisenberg's character is talking to his girlfriend. They're talking about some book they were assigned to read, and she's like, "What did you think of it?" He's like, "Yeah, it's very Kafkaesque." Well, it was by Kafka. Like, well, yeah. Who's more Kafkaesque than Kafka?
Yeah,
it's so Kafkaesque. And just like he clearly hadn't read the book. That's all I think of when I hear someone say Kafkaesque.
And it's Noah Baumbach.
Yes,
that's his name.
Yeah. But we're jumping ahead now to March 2009. Ted Cunningham was found guilty at Cork Circuit Court on 10 charges of laundering over £3 million, which came from the robbery, and he got 10 years. I think his son was also convicted on one charge of money laundering. But in a throwback to the fun times of the early 2010s, and this is probably a story we'll have to do separately. Do you remember Irish-Algerian Ali Sharif Damanche was one of 6 people arrested on conspiracy to murder Lars Vilks, a Swedish cartoonist who depicted the Prophet Muhammad with the body of a dog.
They said depicted the IRA with a big bag of money from a bank.
Do you remember that time 10 years ago when we couldn't go 6 months without someone drawing a picture of the Prophet Muhammad?
Yeah.
And like there was like 6 people arrested in Waterford. Do you remember that?
In Waterford? No, I don't think I do.
Yeah, it was 2010, and I don't know. They're arrested in conspiracy to commit murder anyway. They plotted out to like murder this Swedish cartoonist.
Oh, and I suppose they're going to try and blame that bombing on the IRA as well.
Yeah. You know who hates depictions of the Prophet Muhammad? The IRA. But so during his trial, during Ali's trial, his very sound lawyer argued that so apparently I read through the articles, a lot of legal stuff in it. He threw a load of things at the wall to get his man off. And one of his arguments was that Section 29(1) of the Offences Against the State Act, which was used to arrest Ali, was unconstitutional because it allowed a member of An Garda Síochána who was actively engaged in an investigation to decide on the issuing of a warrant in the investigation. So the lawyer argued that the person making the decision about the warrant should be unconnected with the matter being investigated. And in March 2012, it was ruled by the Supreme Court that this was actually unconstitutional, so it got overthrown.
I was going to say, it sounds very unconstitutional, because in every TV show about cops or film you've ever seen, they go like, oh, we got to go get the warrant. Let's just let us in. And say, no, we got to do the proper channels. And you're all right, well, they're going to get away then. Why can't we just do it ourselves? Like, for that reason.
And I get it, like, that's the law, that's a lawyer's job or whatever, but that's a real, when you've got no case and you're just like, well, you handed the warrant to me sideways, and technically you're just like throwing shit at the wall to see what happens. He must have been delighted that he got away with that. But to do it to defend a man who was planning to like execute, like, surely you pull that one out for, like, I don't know, a little old lady being kicked out of her home or something. Like, you do it to help a guy who was about to execute someone for drawing a picture.
Yeah, I mean, he's a defense counsel, so he's not a good person. Like, that's not...
No, but this is like going above and beyond.
I don't know if our listenership, is there any lawyers out there?
Yeah. You can be a defense lawyer of, we've all seen Better Call Saul. You can defend the little guy.
No, I legitimately, anytime I've ever talked to like any lawyers, either here or mainly in America, I suppose, but they're like, did the whole defense attorney thing for a while, made some money, got out because I hated myself and my life. You're like, yeah, but surely you've got some like rich clients that just have like kids that were like drunk driving. No, yeah, they were and killed like 15 people and got them off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was that famous case in America where it was exactly that thing where someone's rich kid got drunk and ran over other people and they got off because what was the term they came up with, but it was like that they couldn't be held responsible for their actions because they claimed they didn't know right from wrong because they were too rich.
Yes, I think that was
Remember that?
actually Austin, Texas during the South by Southwest Festival. I think it was a guy who drove over a lot of people in a car. Yeah, I think so.
He was like 16, 17. They were like, well, you know, he's been so privileged growing up. He's never actually had to learn morals. So he didn't know it was wrong to drink and murder someone.
And in fairness, I don't expect much more of people who are that wealthy. That, like, I'm surprised that he got caught. But, like, that's the only shocking part of the story for me.
Yeah.
Are you Googling whether that was Texas?
Oh, no, I just looked it up for the term. It was called affluenza.
Yes.
He was he had too much affluence to know right from wrong. But
that is a great. Well, whoever thought that up, this is
amazing.
Yeah. Just don't let it get out because I've got 10 other cases on the go I can use this for. Need to get all of those trialed the same day so there can be nothing changed in the law. But this is an idiotic defense.
But listen, he lived a different life than us. He can't be expected to know the same things. But listen, let's get back to... This is a Christmas episode. Let's get back to the matter at hand. After DeMonch's lawyer figures out that the warrant thing is unconstitutional, I think from then on they change it. They have to get a judge to give you a warrant. But basically, Ted Cunningham had been arrested under the same... Or his warrant had been issued using the same law. So he overturned his initial 10 years for the money laundering on a technicality. At the retrial in February 2014, he pleaded guilty and received a 5-year suspended sentence on 2 counts of laundering. He pleaded guilty to laundering about £250,000, and he avoided imprisonment on account of his bad health and on the condition that he promised to resign from Chesterton Finance, which I think means he'd been there the whole time. He'd been in prison for 3 years, but I think he'd also been like a director of the business.
Well,
the financial
if you
business.
step down, it would just look bad. It would make you look.
Yeah,
good.
And you know, you're like, well, if the rat trusts him with his money, he knows how to keep a secret. He got caught once, probably the last person they're going to look at again. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to know? Yeah, so his poor health conditions. It was called hereditary hemorrhagic telangiectasia. It resulted in 16 separate hospital visits. I'd read in a Sun article that he was found unconscious 16 times in prison, which I don't think you'd be alive after that. But
what is the thing? You're saying it's telecommunic...
Do you want to know what it is?
Telepathy?
No, it's bad nosebleeds.
Oh, okay.
They're like, you can't go back to prison because your nose bleeds.
Yeah.
It's not exactly affluenza, but it's also...
Could be...
I don't think that a man who wasn't a director of a financial organization wouldn't be offered the same... You know what? You've got a bit of a runny nose. Don't worry about prison. You're going home now.
You're saying that, and I would usually agree, but I've met some people over the years who have like a very similar thing. They don't pass out when they do it, but like I've met a good 2 or 3 people who have like dodgy noses, and by that I mean like just like if you touch them on the shoulder, they might it's like waterworks, but instead of water, it's blood.
It's blood.
But like then at the same time, they could go ahead of football and it's grand. They could do other things and it's fine, but just random points. You just like you brush off them when you're on a train. That's not how it sounds, but it's them being gunned down. But yeah, like it's.
But then leave him a box of tissues. You know.
No, I'm telling you, it doesn't stop though. You need to go and get medical. Like it's. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Maybe I've turned around on this man. He was pretty old at this stage as well.
Yeah, and it's at that stage. It's basically, if you get over 65, you're retired. We're not sending you to jail. We will let you off, but you have to give up 2 people.
I think that's the true of any criminal they catch. That's just the rule.
But not if you're the high up one and you're like, right, I'm too old to go. Feck it. But then you do have to give us someone. You do have to give us. It was like, all right, well, there's these cartoonists down in Waterford. They're planning some dodgy shit.
But so jumping forward again, so in 2010, George Hegarty, the nice man from Cork, he was given a 6-year suspended sentence on the condition that he didn't associate with any known ratheads. In 2012, Northern Bank changed its name to Danske Bank. Danske had purchased the bank from National Australia Bank back in December 2004, like weeks before the robbery. If even, for like right before the robbery, they bought over the bank. Just in time for the largest bank robbery in the history of the state. The Australia Bank must have been laughing. Or maybe we should look into them. Yeah, I mean, they've got as much motive as anybody. In 2014, former senior commander of the PSNI, Alan McQuillan, said it was very likely that the IRA was still trying to launder the money from the raid. According to McQuillan, the Provos had a network that was designed to cope with their normal money laundering, but to suddenly try to squeeze an extra 26 million through in that year is just impossible without showing. So, I don't know if it was according to him or maybe it was a few. Apparently, his thinking was that they had no idea that there was that much money in the vaults. Because there had been a few other robberies around Northern Ireland that year, you know, like $1 million here, $1 million there. And usually like that's what the IRA would be expecting or what they're after. And they had no idea there'd be that much money in the bank at the time. And they didn't have anything set up to deal with it. So you reckon like 10 years on, they still were trying to load
Yeah,
it?
you could see it though. I mean, it's like 15 million on top of, but surely...
Oh, they're not getting rid of they're taking the whole 26.
Yeah, but
it's
unusable notes. How do you use unusable? Like my theory earlier of you just sell them for a profit.
Yeah. Or you can.
You've got
them.
even more money to launder.
I remember when I was in Belfast, someone put me onto a guy. You could go down and you could buy 5 fake pounds for £2.
Yes.
So they're, maybe they're not.
Now I've heard
if you can get away with it.
I've heard when you do that, it's 50s, not 5s. But like, it's the big notes. You gotta.
I love the idea of like, yeah, it's £5. It's fake pounds. No one's looking for fake pounds.
Yeah,
you know?
But if you do like the 20s and 50s, etc., I've been told that if you're going to do that, the way to do it is give all of the money you're using to your girlfriend or one of the lads, and then you go up and pay with a single note. So that time, if it is fake and they catch it, then they go, show us the rest of your money, and then you go, here's all the rest of my legal tender. Oh, it must have just been a bad one that came out of an ATM or someone gave it to me along the way. Do you go, oh, sorry? Because if you have all the rest of it on it, they will catch it.
Yes, yeah. That's some good money laundering advice for Christmas in these trying times. If only you'd been there with Ted Cunningham. But in 2015... Catherine Nielsen, so this is the woman who got arrested coming back from Bulgaria because she had a meeting with Ted Cunningham. She released a book called A Terrible State. Although she was never charged with anything, so she was arrested, never charged with anything, let go pretty much straight away. But newspapers ran like front pages with her photo under headlines like "busted." So obviously
the
her
Sun
job
ran
was to,
headlines saying "busty,
busty Bulgarian, busted badly." So her whole operation was like trying to entice Irish business to Bulgaria. So that develops. Like, I imagine there's maybe not back in 2004, but now certainly there's like checks and that sort of thing. Or you need to not have your face on the front of all these newspapers being like IRA floozy smuggles money into Bulgaria. It basically like ruined her business. And even though she was never charged with anything, she could never get the papers to redact it. She could never get the guards to release a statement saying that she was innocent. So she
sue the whole off the papers.
Yeah, she sued the papers, but it took years to go through. And to keep up a lawsuit like that, it takes
a lot of
obviously a long time. You need enough money.
She's got a lot of laundered money.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, no.
But yeah, she moved to the Isle of Man. She had to sell all her stuff. Eventually, she went on hunger strike for 56 days in 2007. As a last-ditch effort to get a letter from the guards saying that, formally declaring her that she was no longer under investigation for it.
Wow.
Yeah, which is extreme.
It is. She's clearly involved in it.
Yeah, no smoke without
Otherwise,
fire.
they probably would have, they would have done it earlier. I could see the newspapers holding out as long as possible so they don't have to pay the defamation money. But, the guards... If they thought she was 100% innocent, probably would have.
Yeah, I think
because it only looks bad on them having to do more hunger strikes.
So she released the whole book about it, which I obviously haven't read, but I think there's probably a case where they were like, well, we'll just keep you on file just in case, but it had ruined her business, and she had this ongoing lawsuit of defamation with the newspapers. I don't know. Yeah, they just wouldn't release the information of her, but Yeah, that's that same year of 2015. It was rumored that 2 murders were linked to the robbery as part of an internal IRA row over what to do with the proceeds. There was Jared Jock Davidson, who was shot dead in May of 2015, and Kevin McGuigan, who was killed in August. So the story that the IRA pushed was that McGuigan had killed Davidson as revenge for Davidson ordering one of the IRA's most severe forms of punishment on him, known as the six-pack, in which the victim would be shot 6 times in the elbows, ankles, and knees.
Oh.
Yeah, that's not good.
Is that like what the IRA, that's a song they make the children learn in the junior infants? Ankles, knees,
elbows, ankles, knees, and elbows, ankles, knees. Yeah, maybe. But, that's... You're not recovering from that, I don't think.
No, and so they don't kill you afterwards. It's just those. You just get the elbows, knees.
No, it's like a punishment.
And ankles, and then that's. Oh, God.
Yeah. 1 each. So the Rat claimed they only killed McGuigan when it was found out that he was planning to kill another senior IRA man. But, so the punishment thing had happened a decade ago, and the 2 men had been living within 100 yards of each other the whole time. So the story didn't really make much sense. Another story was that Davidson had gotten into an internal row over a missing £500,000 from the robbery, and things were coming to a head as Davidson was tipped to become the next IRA chief of staff. So, maybe the IRA had him killed and then blamed McGuigan and then killed him too. But Bobby Story himself was arrested for the murder of McGuigan, but was released without charge. So Story had also been accused by several people, but also the UP MP David Burnside of being the planner of the Northern Bank robbery. Do you know much about Bobby's story? I think you probably were out of the country for a lot of the antics last year.
Yeah, don't know this now.
Well, Bobby's story, he was a senior IRA official. He was famous for orchestrating the prison break from the H-blocks.
Allegedly.
To do a story about. No, he did that. He was, I think if you go back far enough, there's no alleged, like before the Good Friday Agreement, they all were like, yeah, no, I did that.
Yeah, but I think it's allegedly for me now is along the same lines as Kafka-esque or meta, where it's just, throw it into any sentence I can, just, why not?
He orchestrated the H-blocks breakout. He was like a major figure in the RA, and then in later life, a big proponent of Jerry Adams and like a friend of Sinn Féin's. So when he died, his funeral was in June of 2020, and I'd say you were in America for all this, but basically a load of people lined up in the streets for it. The First Minister of Northern Ireland was there, Michelle O'Neill, Mary Lou, a lot of other politicians, and the PSNI. So June 2020, that's early on into COVID. So the PSNI investigated it for breaches of restrictions for months. And then in March 2021, the following year, they said they weren't going to prosecute anyone for attending the funeral. And that was ostensibly the cause of... Did you hear anything about there was like 10 days of riots in Belfast and Derry then? Yeah. So the riots happened about 2 weeks after that announcement that they weren't going to prosecute anybody. Mm. So I know there was other factors in that. It was like the sea border had also just been agreed at the time. But a lot of people were saying it was about the Bobby Story thing. And I'm convinced, although I can't find it, and I went looking for it again last night, I'm convinced at the time I saw a video of somebody going down and interviewing rioters. And he was like, what are you out here rioting for? And they're like, oh, it's Bobby's story. It's Bobby's story. It's like, well, what exactly is it about Bobby's story? He's like, he shouldn't have done what he did. It was disgraceful.
It was,
and I can't find it anywhere.
Lads hadn't been out of the house for a few months. They needed something to do.
That was genuinely it. It was extremely hot in May. Everyone was locked down from COVID. Things were kind of going to shit in the north at the time, and everyone was just out rioted in the streets. But it was easy to be like, it was Bobby's story and the funeral. Yeah. But maybe he also robbed Northern Bank
or drew a photo of Muhammad. We'll never get to the bottom of
this. So. To date, no one has been held directly responsible for the robbery. Chris Ward is the only person to ever be put on trial for the robbery, but he was proven innocent. Well, there's no evidence against him. And Ted Cunningham is the only person to have actually done jail time in sort of, not even direct relation, but relation to the robbery.
And he still got off of that though, right?
He's still, he served 3 years, and then the rest of it was suspended sentence.
But now surely he must get claim. Then if he's unlawfully done 3 years in jail, he could probably sue the state.
In 2020, the 72-year-old Ted Cunningham sued Northern Bank. Justice Minister Charlie Flanagan, Garda Commissioner Drew Harris, Director of Public Prosecutions Claire Loftus, Attorney General Seamus Wolfe, and former senior guards and former Criminal Asset Bureau representatives, alleging that the Gardaí had improperly seized the money from his house that time. He said that the £3 million he previously admitted to laundering belonged to a Bulgarian businessman who, for some reason, was operating in Northern Bank pounds in 2004 from Bulgaria.
I've heard stranger things.
Yes. So because that's an ongoing case, I couldn't find out too much about it, but it seems like now...
Why does my brain work like a criminal?
Well, 15 years after he was arrested, and at various times he would have admitted to laundering this money. Because he went to jail he admitted to laundering some of it. And
doesn't change the fact that they broke the law.
Well, because he was retried. His initial sentence was dropped and he was retried, and then he was found guilty and admitted that he laundered certain amounts of the money. But because he'd already served time and because of his nosebleeds, they're like, all right, forget it. And now, so I don't know when he would have been released, but whatever, 10 years later, he's like, actually, fuck you. And now he's trying to sue literally everybody involved, including a bank that doesn't trade under that name anymore. He just wants his money back.
He wants his laundered money back.
No, it's the Bulgarian man's money. You can ask anyone. The man from Bulgaria had it. He had the sterling from this money that's not even accepted in London. A man in Bulgaria was using, and he was going to invest heavily in the Irish economy at the time. And those dirty, dirty cops lifted it from him.
Fair play. That's gone.
So
Ted.
There you go. The very last bit of this is that I saw some comment on Reddit when I was looking through this of some guy saying that he'd worked with a lad who, as a joke, put up an ad on eBay saying, "So many million Northern Bank notes for sale, will ship to Colombia." And then apparently the police showed up outside his door within about 30 minutes and almost knocked the thing down.
Well, clearly a joke. Clearly a joke.
Yeah, but I think... I don't know if that's an anecdote or it happened, but this is...
I can almost guarantee you that
I think it's
happened.
hard to overexpress.
Out of all of this story, the only thing I'm willing to actually put on record to say that I believe happened was that one Garda definitely saw PSNI or whatever, definitely saw it and went, oh, this is it, cracking the case. We've been on to this.
There's a
We've
chance.
been on to this for months. I know what it is. I know it's just some lad. We haven't been checking Craigslist or the adverts. Fucking
It's a testament to this. I think it really it put a strain on the peace process. I think later, going into 2005, the IRA did then de-arm themselves and documented themselves being de-armed. So I know we were joking earlier on about the whole idea of it being done as a pension scheme, but the more I read into it, I was that does actually make sense. And in a twisted way, I'd seen someone put it that it actually was a positive. It was them endorsing the peace process because they were like, all right, we are going to disarm in the next 6 months, which they did end up doing. But before we go out, we're making sure we have enough money to pay all our members.
That is okay. That is fair. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't know.
Fair is a strong
word.
What
I would say is, we can redact that. What I would say is that the IRA have a lot less money than probably what we all think of, because 20 million is chump change.
Yeah, to pay out all of your members. But again, as we said earlier, they're not living long lives.
No, but even still, it's just the idea of a huge organization like that should have, especially with the allegations of drug running and et cetera, you'd think they would have more than 20 million. 20 something million. Isn't their pension scheme should be right lads, one last big one for the boys, let's steal 100, 200, 500 million. Not because if you're saying that they weren't expecting to get that much money, they were probably only expecting to get a couple of million. Was it just here's 10 grand each for all the boys?
Well, I mean, cash in hand can go a long way in Belfast. If you go to the right pubs...
Doesn't seem to go that far. You can't even use a fake, uncirculated banknote these days.
A lot of IRA men probably wouldn't put their hand in their pockets for a pint anyway. I'd say, it'd be interesting to see how much of that cash is still out there.
You'd buy
imagine
some.
there's parts of Belfast where it's still being...
You would buy some.
Yeah.
Collectors.
Well,
some lads have like those old boxes of Amberleaf before they made everything the same generic, all the cigarettes the same color. Like an actual box of Amberleaf inside of a frame. I've seen that. I think actually Dan, our producer, has that. And it's always been a point of contention when it's hung up and you're at a party and there's no tobacco left. And you're like, there's not a sign that says break in case of emergency. Smash glass.
But this is an emergency and it will break. But that's the festive miracle story of the Great Northern Bank Robbery.
I'm in a great mood now. It's cheered me up.
It's cheery. Well, happy Christmas.
And
everyone.
If we don't talk to you before then, Merry New Year and etc. Merry New Year, Happy New Year, all of them.
Exactly. The whole goddamn thing.
Yeah, how about this? You can feel however you want to on New Year's. You can feel merry.
Yeah.
You can't be merry in a pub, unfortunately. But you could be drunk off your arse at home.
That's it. Happy Christmas. Good luck.
Shafter.